Now, let me say that my organization, the International Development Law Organization, is the world's only intergovernmental organization that is exclusively devoted to advancing the rule of law for the sake of peace, justice, and sustainable development. And we have been a proud supporter of GQUAL Campaign since its launch, because we see gender equality at the heart of IDLO's mandate, our mandate, which is about the rule of law. And the rule of law is fundamentally about equality. We are all equal in the eyes of the law. We are all entitled to equal protection and equally accountable. And the meaningful and equal participation of women in all aspects of life, including international institutions, international justice institutions, is not just an aspiration, but a right, well recognized in international documents, but still, as we have heard, a long way from realization. Allow me to add another dimension from the kind of work that my organization does on the ground in the field, and that is the national dimension. The paucity, the lack of women, the low number of women in the international justice sector is a reflection of the lack of sufficient numbers of women in the national justice sectors. According to the UN figures, only 27% of judges worldwide are women. Out of the 153 jurisdictions noted in the World Bank's report on women, business, and the law, only 26 of them, out of 153 jurisdictions, have women chief justices. Growing the number of women justice professionals at the national and local levels is important because it would widen the potential pool of candidates for international institutions. It would build political support from the bottom up, and it would make gender parity in justice institutions a concrete issue, not something for the global legal elite, but something about which ordinary people would care. Put it in another way, if we do not crack the glass ceiling at the domestic level, it will be harder to do so at the international level. A political system that does not value women in its own judiciary is unlikely to champion women in the international legal institutions. A society that does not see any real value in its women holding the gavel of justice in their hands is not going to understand the need for change in international institutions. I think some of us will remember the rallying call of women's movements when we said that the personal is political. In the same way, for women, the global is local. Look inwards into national situations, into national judicial and legal systems, only so that we can better fight the cause internationally. As a field-based organization that carries out programs for legal technical assistance, for capacity development, and policy advocacy, we have seen our work on women's access to justice grow extensively. We work in a varied range of countries, from Afghanistan to Mongolia to Kyrgyzstan, Honduras, Kenya, Tunisia, Egypt, on a whole range of issues: gender-based violence, women's economic empowerment, other forms of gender discrimination. And across the world, we see women still unable to access justice and navigate justice institutions because of a collusion of political, economic, social, and cultural factors. Traditional, customary, or informal justice, or formal, state-owned justice systems, both do make it very difficult for women to access justice. And what we have found is that the quality of justice for women improves when women are not only consumers of justice, but also its providers. Justice by women produces better justice for women. And I think this applies across the entire chain of justice, going all the way from the bottom to the top. In the same way, from the top to the bottom, we need to look to see what's actually happening on the ground. And we have worked on the ground, as I said, through our technical assistance programs, but we have also undertaken research. We have published research on barriers as well as pathways to women's participation in the justice sector. We have published a report in Afghanistan, where only 8% of judges, 6% of prosecutors, and 19% of lawyers are women. And yet we know this is a country which has a very high rate of gender-based violence against women, discrimination against women. Our next report is on Tunisia, where things are surprisingly much better compared to the rest of the region, and we want to draw lessons from there to show how progress can be made. We have created national networks, for instance in Kyrgyzstan, for Women Judges Association. Kyrgyzstan, incidentally, is one of those 26 countries where the Chief Justice is a woman. We are also facilitating women prosecutors associations, because through this kind of work, we feel that we may be able to make a difference, contribute to the GQUAL campaign. And it's important to look at national institutions for two reasons. First, because justice matters for all women. And second, it creates a pool of well-qualified and well-supported women who can then be candidates for international positions. So what can we do? I think there are various things that we can do at the practical level, from encouraging young girls and women to go to law school, to qualify, to work the way into the justice profession. Taking practical approaches, for instance, we found in our report in Afghanistan, one of the reasons why there are 20% of women going to law school, but only 8% then getting employed, is because it is hard for women in Afghanistan to use public transport to go to work. So even a simple thing like providing transport to take a woman from her home to the court can make a difference. Those are practical issues, but I think there is more than that, and as GQUAL itself is showing, it's extremely important to mobilize and organize, to support women's legal and judicial professional associations, to reach out to other organizations that are also working in the area of gender equality, and of course to take it beyond women to engage with men. And then I would say it's extremely important to generate political will. Processes matter, policies matter, but we know that at the end of the day, what really matters is leadership and political will. As the former Secretary General of Amnesty International, let me say that political will is very often created through pressure of public opinion. And I think this is where research comes in so important, what GQUAL is doing, getting the killer facts to name and shame, as you have so effectively done on the issue of the CEDAW committee that you were talking about. Name and shame and expose and educate. I think those are the pathways to overcoming this injustice in the very heart of justice institutions. Now let me end by telling you the story of a woman in Kyrgyzstan. This young woman was studying in university in the city, and once when her university closed, she went home to her village to visit her family. And as she was trying to enter her home, a group of men came and surrounded her, and they were trying to pull her away. And she immediately realized what was happening. There is a tradition in Kyrgyzstan of bride stealing. What that means is that if a young man wants to marry a woman, he steals her, he abducts her, and then forcibly marries her. And this woman, when she realized what was happening, she grabbed hold of the door of her house so that they could not pull her away. And then the door opened, and her mother came out. And her mother prized her fingers away and let the men take her away, because that was the tradition. Now, this young woman was very bright. She persuaded her kidnappers to let her go by telling them that she was not a virgin and that she was pregnant. So her value as a bride was reduced. They let her go. She was, of course, lying. She went back to university, finished law school, and today she's a judge in Kyrgyzstan, and she was one of the participants in our capacity development program. So there are many, many courageous women candidates out there. Whether they make it to this seat here, I think depends on our commitment and our organization and mobilization of political will. And I'm sure that GQUAL will help us reach that goal. Thank you.